We have three speakers this morning, myself and Allan March will be speaking about current state of the First Amendment, and John will be talking about, John Reiskin, our Vice President now, will be talking about the future. But my job is to talk about the past, where we came from, and stuff like that. You know, I was thinking about preparing something formal for this, but since I know so many of you, at least by face, if not by name, I thought I'd share with you a recollection that I have of one of our first year meeting. We wanted to meet close to the university, so we were located in Holiday Inn right across the street from campus, thinking that we'd get so many, friends from faculty and stuff who'd walk across the street and join us. And although that didn't happen, nobody wanted to give up their parking spaces or anything. The point that I remember though was, this was in the springtime of that first season, and my daughter was just born. My wife and I came to the forum, and we walked in to a crowd very much like this, and you could hear the people recognizing little baby was joining the whole thing. I don't think we have any little babies today, but I have my memories of the early part of the forum. I think this whole thing started due to a remarkable convergence of people with similar ideas. They came from journalism, from the church, from the university, from school, from libraries, from all over this community. But I can remember one time I was driving along. I'd become a big fan of public radio, and the radio in general. I was recovering from a very bad car wreck, and I spent a lot of time in my car.
If you held it not quite so close to your mouth.
Not quite so close?
Fiddling with it, because it makes noise.
Makes noise. No fiddling?
No fiddling.
No fiddling with the speaker? With the mic, sorry. And I heard this stuff on the radio. This guy was squawking and carrying on, saying things like, if you've committed a crime, you know you're guilty, that kind of stuff. And some other things like, there should be no women on a jury when there's a stud on trial. And I said, my God, who is this guy? And I rushed to find out. And it'll be no surprise, it was Rush. And I thought, God, this is wrong. This is just ridiculous. And I got really fired up about that. And so, since that time, we got together and put a format together that was modeled after the City Club Forum of Cleveland. We had Alan Davis, the former director of that forum, come on down and help us set up. And he was very gracious, and we started the get-together for a meal and then a half an hour of questions and things like that. I wondered, where did this guy Rush come from? I found out about the Fairness Doctrine, and its origins a long time ago in the Federal Radio Commission during FDR's time, and later on transformed into something else when television came around, you all remember. And then during the Reagan years, the whole thing was scuttled. And as a consequence, radio stations in particular could go off in their own directions and focus on their own clientele, their own market, things like that, and say almost anything they pleased. And here we are now together with a siloed kind of country with people speaking to the converted and things like that. I said, no, we've got to get together somehow, and we've got to find out if there's a truth, find out what other people think about it, and go ahead and have the inquiry and things like that. And one of the reasons that I didn't prepare anything today is because you get so much more from a speaker when you can see them and hear them and see their body language and how they fiddle with Mike or whatever. And it's different from doing things on the web or doing things on TV or stuff like that. But they have their uses. The internet's very, very useful, as we'll talk about later on. But to get a really a kind of person's jib, that kind of thing, a sense of who they are and how they act and how they comport themselves, it comes from individual meetings and being together. And that's one of the wonderful things about this forum that no other medium can provide. We just hope we could get a larger portion of the community to go ahead and participate. So that's really the story of where we came from. And now we can talk, I guess. Allan, if you're ready.
Mm-hmm. Could you have the people here who have been president or officers just raise their hand?
Yeah, exactly. Everybody who's served on the board or been president at one time or another, go ahead and raise your paw. Thank you so much. One last thing. This has been a very difficult year for so many ways. Our first president was Alice Primack, a librarian, who consented to herd cats when we were young, trying to get this thing going, people going in different directions with different professional backgrounds. And she brought us all together. She passed away this year. And we owe a tribute to her for having got us going in the right direction. And the second loss that we felt this year has been the loss of Paul Hargrave, who's been our program director for many, many years and has done a wonderful job for us. He was yes. And we miss him, and we're trying hard to replace him. So, to talk about now current events in the battle of free speech, this is Allan March, our treasurer.
Excuse me, are you able to hear me with this? Okay, well that's good. Well, I'm a retired physician. I'm not a historian, but I think it's very important to talk about the history. So to prepare for this morning, or this afternoon, I read a book that I want to share with you. It's written by a Pulitzer Prize winning historian named Joseph Ellis. He's a history professor at Mount Holyoke in Massachusetts. He wrote a book just published 3 years ago called The Cause. And it's the subtitle is The American Revolution and Its Discontents. And you have to read the book to learn about what are the discontents, the shortcomings of the American Revolution. And because we're still dealing with it. So in order to understand free speech, I figured we had to learn about the First Amendment. And to learn about the First Amendment, we had to go back and learn about the American Revolution. So my wife Janet and I went up to Philadelphia last month to learn about the Revolution. And there's a wonderful new museum called the Museum of the American Revolution. It's a not-for-profit, private, not-for-profit, and it's a wonderful museum. We ran into students, middle school and high school students from all over the country while we were in the museum. And the other place that we enjoyed was the National Constitution Center. And that's located opposite Independence Hall, which was once the Pennsylvania State House. There's a 2-block green, and then on the north end is the National Constitution Center, where we learned about the First Amendment. Now, let's see if we can get this. Free speech, I thought that originated in the First Amendment, but if you look back at 1737, there was a young Pennsylvanian named Benjamin Franklin, who was the printer and publisher for the Pennsylvania Gazette. And this is what he wrote back in 1737. Freedom of speech is a principal pillar of free government. When this support is taken away, the constitution of a free society is dissolved, and tyranny is erected on its ruins. Sage words. So if we look at the development of the First Amendment, we have to go back to the convention, the Constitution Convention, right? 1787 now. This is a decade into the Articles of Confederation that were drawn up when we first declared our independence in 1776. And the Articles of Confederation were really, it recognized each of the colonies as a separate sovereign state. They operated with their own bank, their own currency, or the currency of the crown, and their own militia. We didn't have a centralized government back then. So that's why they wanted to have our founding fathers wanted to have a more centralized, more powerful government. But there was resistance during the process of getting the Constitution approved in the year following 1787. There was a lot of kickback saying there's too much power, central power. They wanted some limitation of these powers. So 2 years later, they came back with, not get ahead of myself, the first Congress that met in New York City came back with 12 amendments, which had been circulated to the states. And 10 of them were approved. And the first one was the Amendment 1. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or the press or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. So there wasn't a whole lot of legal action in the first 100 years following this, but in the Civil War, it became recognized that there was too much restraint of free speech in the southern states. And so the 14th Amendment was formulated, and thanks to the ACLU, I have my pocket constitution in my pocket. And within the first section, the section 1 of the 14th Amendment says, no state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. So what this said was that what was originally in the First Amendment intended to be restriction of the federal government, the big government of our innate freedoms, was now also applicable to the states. And that was, let's see here. The principal Supreme Court decision was in 1925 that determined that states cannot interfere with First Amendment freedoms. Now, when talking about our freedom of speech, there are limitations, and this I condensed into 4 items which you can kind of relate to. This is speech that is not protected by the First Amendment, speech intended and likely to provoke immediate illegal activity, violence. Second, sexually explicit speech that lacks serious literary or artistic value. Third, threats of harm to a person or a group, or someone known by that person or group. So if you threaten somebody's wife with something, the husband can take you to court, I guess. False statement that damages a person's reputation. So that's both in written or spoken form. So while Janet and I were in Philadelphia, on April 5th, we wandered down to Independence Square, and what should we encounter but a peaceable assembly, according to the First Amendment. And they were this was the hands-off movement. on that Saturday, and I know there were also demonstrations here in Gainesville. And here you see a woman in the foreground, hands off, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, the National Institute of Health, the CDC, and the Environmental Protection Agency. And in the background, you can see the National Constitution Center displaying the First Amendment. I mean, here is a living, breathing example of the First Amendment, and we were a participant of that. And likewise, to the side, on the side of the National Convention Center, we saw the preamble of the Constitution above the crowd. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. So it's alive, and it's now our responsibility, or my duty, I take this personal, to continue and uphold our Constitution. Thank you.
Okay, first of all, I'm also reading a fascinating book. I recommend, because it's so beautifully written, and that's John Meacham's latest book on Lincoln. But it's a lot more than on Lincoln. It's called And There Was Light, is the title of the book. I highly recommend it. I'm right in the middle of it. He touches on these topics in the maturation of Abraham Lincoln himself. As it's just absolutely fascinating. So when Jay thought of today's session, we thought of dealing with the past and memories of high school. Anyway, the past, the present, which you've just been apprised of, and the future. And in this case, I'm not talking about the future of America, I'm talking about the future of the Cotton Club. I wear several hats. The future of the Florida Free Speech Forum. And it's been 30 years since the origin of the forum, and I joined about 20 years ago. So I don't know those very beginning times, but I remember some of the leaders we've had in the past, and it's been very inspiring, and it's been a nice social experience as well. So what we want to talk about today as a group, and I will lead it a little bit and see where it leads to, we want to point out that there has never been a time that's been more important to reinforce the First Amendment. But whether this organization, how it's presently run, is the most effective way is what I'd like to open up a discussion on. And there's several elements here. First of all, the one thing that is not directly impacting us is our finances. Allan is our treasurer, and where is Allan?
Right here, we're solvent.
We are solvent, so that's not a concern. Our concern is, especially now, in a time when people are bending the First Amendments in a variety of ways, or trying to, that we have an obligation. But to whom and how we reinforce this, the First Amendment and the rights associated with it. I wanted to go a little back, because remember, these were amendments to the Constitution, and when the Constitution was adopted in 1787 and then confirmed, James Madison said, I promised that what was in the Virginia Constitution, which already had these rights spelled out. His first job was, he would say, when I get into Congress, I will propose these 12 amendments, of which the first 10 were adopted. turns out that Patrick Henry, who we've celebrated some event of his recently, Patrick Henry was not a friend of James Madison. Felt Madison took too much away from the states. And so when James Madison ran for the first congressional district of Virginia, the mind goes. Patrick Henry got James Monroe to run against him. Now, the two were opposites in many ways, though ultimately they were the same party. James Madison was about 5'3". I think I'm even taller than he is. And James Monroe was a tall man and had a distinguished feature. And the elections were held in February, which is, it was a close call. But Patrick Henry had designed the District 1 to favor the more federalist side of the issues. And this was long before Governor Gerry of Massachusetts designed his district. So it was already gerrymandered before Gerry came on the scene. So Madison campaigned, had a really strong campaign, and ultimately defeated the war hero that James Monroe, the tall, handsome young man, ran against him. And that allowed him to fulfill his promise of bringing up the 12 amendments. Incidentally, of those 12, 10 were adopted in the first Congress, and then sent to the states and were adopted as amendments. The 11th Amendment was adopted in 1992. 1992, having to do with the requirement that Congress could not raise its salaries. There had to be an election between the time they propose a raise and they get the raise. The 12th Amendment I've forgotten, and it's never been adopted. So the 11th Amendment was adopted, but it's now, you have your little book, it'll show you which one that is. Anyway, so back to the issue of the Florida Free Speech Forum and what we do. So what I looked at was a series of kind of elements of our group, and I would like to encourage a discussion of them as we bring them up. I'll quickly outline them, and then we can talk about them. First of all, our numbers are declining and shrinking a bit. Our ages are increasing a bit. And so we want to periodically review what the purpose, that's a funny term for biologists. We don't like using the word purpose. We like to use the word function. But in this case, it is actually the purpose of this organization and how we can continue our job and our dedication more effectively. So, so I have these various elements. I'll just list the elements and we talk about each of them. The audience, the venue and the time we have it, the media, how we spread the word, who presents the talks, and then more outreach considerations. And someone mentioned to guarantee a more political diversity, if that's what we want, and I think that's a good thing in diverse times. We have valuable discussions. We had a speaker whose name I've forgotten, a friend of Kirsten, who spoke about how to deal with the center, if it still exists anywhere. But I think we have to be mindful of diversity of opinions in the country and generally, which are allowed to be expressed thanks to the First Amendment, at least so far. So, And also Kirsten also mentioned the wonderful venue we have. I tell you, we've been through several places since we were meeting at Bivens Arm. So has that hotel gone through several ownerships since then. And finally, I think we found, I don't know how you feel, but I think we found a very warm, welcoming, and delicious place to have our meetings. So I'm not going to go into that in too much detail. So let's talk a little about who should be here. Who should the audience be for our presentations? It requires a little kind of self-examination. As I say, we're somewhat superannuated, so I'd be interested in anybody's opinion right now. And we have this mic here, which I'll turn on. If you speak, well, maybe it doesn't have.
Yeah, there's a question.
Oh, I see. The green light goes on. Okay. Would anybody like to address this group on that issue? Is this the right crowd? And if it's not, what should be the crowd? And I'd like to just give the mic to someone to speak to that. Would someone like to talk about that? Thank you. Allan.
So I came today, I'm not one of your regular
Speak right into
attendees,
it.
but I saw the topic of today's discussion is where are we going to go from here? And I'm really interested, as getting older myself and having been a member of Audubon bird groups that we're always being burdened with older people, we need to find some way to get younger people. That's the obvious thing. But we were talking about the challenges that we have right now. I feel that one of the biggest challenges as North Americans is reviewing this part of our democracy and how we got this country together, and that if there was a forum for people of different opinions to get together and kind of relive that whole process of finding the Venn diagram of what makes America great. Because what we're suffering from, I think, is with the two-party system, they're not talking to each other. We're not talking one side to the other. So I was wondering, are there any Rotarians that are here? Because Rotarians have a four-way test. Is it the truth? Does it build goodwill? Oh man, is it fair? And is it beneficial to all? And I know the Rotarians don't like to take on political issues, but I feel that we are living in a time that if we don't do that with the elephant in the room, you know, if we don't recognize that there's always been some issue, and it's no different now, but we just have a crazy dichotomy that we have to find a way to deal with. That's what worries me the most.
Thank you. How does just get a show of hands? How sympathetic are you to that position? Good. Yeah, it's a no-brainer, he says. Yeah, okay. But there may be differing opinions on that. And so that brings us to a variety of things. When we have this, we have a luncheon here, middle of the day. Not everybody can get away for this sort of thing. So one possibility is to move it to a different time. Sometimes possibly the evening, sometimes maybe late afternoon, from 5:30 to 6:30 in an evening where you have snacks and drinks, something like that, depending on what you want to drink, but that sort of thing. So that's one variable there. We're getting back to identifying a crowd. There are people who can get off from work or can get to something that doesn't break the day right in the middle. Now, one of the great advantages of this is our social gathering together. And, but that's not the purpose of the Florida Free Speech Forum. The purpose was to spread the word, whatever the words are, and to actually practice what we preach. Let's put it that way. I love the venue here. This is somewhat limited by the hours of this of the place, so that's another matter. Yeah, Chris.
I've always thought that we needed to get young people involved, real young people. And we've done pretty well at having, over time, Kirsten brought in high school students from some of her classes at Buchholz, and we had several other high schools do that. And we provided the meal for them, and they were here. We did the essay writing contest, and that involved some. But I thought the vehicle, getting the young middle-aged or parents involved had to be through their kids some way. And so I wouldn't leave it, but I don't know how you interface with the school system as tight as it is right now in terms of curriculum and things like this. But I'd like to, if somebody's got a good brainstorm on that one, how do we access these young people here, which they might be able to draw in some from other high schools. When is it? I don't know. But would we draw on parents then? And that's what we need. We need that younger crowd.
You next, Gene.
I'm next, okay.
I'm relatively new. Is this on? Yes. So, okay. So I'm relatively new to this forum, but I live on the east side, so I love having things over here. But in answer to a couple things that were mentioned before, and I know it's a mixed feeling when you talk about being in person, Jay, but I think incorporating, having this being a Zoom meeting and having it being archived so people can look back on it with a chat room where they can give response to what's talked about, you're going to gain exposure for people that can't get out and travel. And I think that would open it up. The other thing was, when I used to be in a band, English country dancing, we noticed that people, this one family that was homeschooled, they would bring their kids down to the United Church of Gainesville, and they would have their kids from 8 years old to 15 years old come to dance with adults and being around another setting rather than in homeschool. You're pretty much locked into being in an area. So there's homeschooled programs that they get very creative in how they can expose their children to other things going on in society. So those are two suggestions. Thank you.
I'm Jean Chalmers. Oh, I'm Jean Chalmers, and I'm old enough to remember Toastmasters, where young people would come and give their little talk, and debate clubs. Debate clubs were wonderful, and I think they still exist in many of the high schools, and I would like to see us have debate clubs part of this meeting. And I think we should approach the principal of the high schools and Santa Fe Community College about getting a debate club organized as part of our function, and we should support that.
That's great. So I have a good friend, Warner Weston, who won the champion. He was the debate coach of the year for the state of Florida this year. I think that's a great idea, and I can contact him.
Well,
That's
we're
great.
right here at East Side High School. Maybe we could talk to the government classes or civic classes here for a specific time when we have a program that they might want to send some people to.
So what she said, if you didn't hear, is that there are government classes. I hope there are. I don't know how many civics classes are taught in the high schools now. I know that's a debatable thing, but it's something to check with. You're absolutely right. Yeah.
Yes, just wanted to add something. One of the books that I've been reading recently, can you get that? Okay. Jonathan Turley has written a book about the First Amendment called The Indispensable Right. It's a fabulous book, historical book. He's a law professor up at GW, up in DC. And he said some things that really shocked me about First Amendment violations and suppression of free speech. He said that the people that were saying that you had to wear a mask during COVID, the so-called COVID mask mandate, were violating people's free speech to talk about things that they wanted to talk about, saying this is not communicable disease, blah, 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 blah. I'm a scientist, John is a scientist, you know, and Allan is as well, you know, from a different tradition. But, you know, there's a difference between things that affect public health and that are based on the studies that have been made of communication of illnesses. It makes it different from just spouting off an idea that you have, or wishing that you only, no, I'm not going to say that, no Russian balls, no cost. And that really shocked me, and they, some of the current administration people accused the Biden administration of suppressing and going after people that were promulgating anti-mandate, anti-mask kinds of statements by NIH, CDC, and all the other different parts of government that were trying to keep this pandemic from spreading. Now we have a measles thing that's cropping up, and so we'll see what happens there. But it creates a problem for us deciding what's permissible speech and what isn't. And with reference to what Chris was saying, I can remember him in the early forums, you know, talking, raising his voice in the middle of the crowd, sort of saying, "What is your question?" Which was wonderful, because people get up there and they get a mic in their hands and they just keep on talking. I of course won't do that. It was great. It was great because I felt the courage to go ahead and raise my voice and join you a bit too, because people do want to blow to you.
Somebody hollered at me one time, said, "Well, it's free speech."
Exactly. And that's what people think, and that's why this background is so important for people to get a more nuanced understanding of what's permissible and what isn't.
Well, every comment so far has led me and others to say, you should get a speaker about that.
Of course.
In preparation for this meeting, I talked to our grandniece, who is a website designer, and her partner, who is an audio engineer, both of whom reside in Los Angeles, are in their late 20s, and posed the problem, how do we reach our younger audiences out there? And they said, well, you've got great speakers, you've got a great forum. I mean, they looked at our strengths, and I had a lot to boast about, of course, on behalf of all of you. They said, well, and you're also videoing, you're recording videos of your programs. So what you need is high quality videos and audios. And when you post the video, you don't do it all at once. That's overwhelming your target audience. You've got to break it down into 2 to 3 minute small focused focal points. And you have to keep bringing it before them. So you have to bring it out 2 or 3 times a week in little bits. But of course you want to connect it to the whole big talk for people who want to delve deep. So you have to have that attached. And also it sounds like you want to have a connection to your donation page, so you can get compensated for all the work you're doing. And they said there are 3 social media which you should target. Number 1, Instagram. Number 2, TikTok. And number 3, YouTube's Shorts.
Well, I want to take a moment now to thank Alec Gredemeyer, who is our videographer. He gets here in the nick of time, every time. And so we have built, yet to disseminate, built a library of this year's speakers. And those short-term TikTok and Instagram, I'm always scared of them or how to use them. So some of us need an education in that. But it's excellent. And what's interesting is your son and wife, or your daughter and wife, grandniece, are in LA. But we can communicate with them. Now, something you've brought up is something we have tried. During the pandemic, Horace Moore Sr. was president of the forum at the time, and it was strictly Zoom. And we lost a lot of members because you had to eat by yourself. And but we were able to branch out and get speakers from elsewhere because there was no limit on that. And then, as the pandemic dissipated, we tried a hybrid. I remember the September meeting at the Holiday Inn, which was a kind of a mess. And hybrids are real headaches. Doesn't mean they can't be used, but it takes something like the students of Eric Flagg at Santa Fe College, and Alec is one of those students, and who are skilled at working through these things instead of some of us trying to learn on the run. So taking advantage of young people not only to come and hear about the importance of the First Amendment, etc., to have them come in and actually handle some of our communications is a real possibility. And so it's something we should include. Incidentally, because we're recording this meeting, as we have the others of this year, we are going to be able to go back to that recording and get some. That's why I don't have to make notes right now. So let me just move on a little bit with regard to the content. Yeah.
How many people here are comfortable using Zoom?
How many people here are comfortable using Zoom? Anybody uncomfortable about it? Well, that's very good.
That's good. Excellent.
I was on the Teaching Awards Committee of the university in March of 2020. And in 1 week, everything went on Zoom. And it was, you had to get, the students were easily adaptable, but I had to figure out how to get in and communicate. There was a week or two of uncomfortableness, but I think most of us are comfortable. Yes?
Yeah. John and I have to leave in a couple of minutes. He's got a class he's teaching, but one idea that I think that you might want to pursue, we don't have a website, do we?
We do.
We do have a website.
Yes.
Well, I don't know how many of us ever go on that website?
Yeah.
We go to register.
Yeah.
To register.
I think that the website could be used as a forum for creating ideas, for us communicating with each other, and for outsiders to reach us and see what we're doing. I think if we were to really promote our website among ourselves with regard to internal communications, bring up ideas for new talks, I think that could be an exciting way of perhaps making more interest within the organization.
I think that's a great idea. The question always with websites is how open they are, and whether it's kept among the group of us or nothing, or something like that. And that's where the techies can figure out how to do that.
When I first
Yeah,
is
that's
this on?
it's on, but just speak right into it. Yeah.
When I first started attending, Bill Beckett was the program director at WUFT-FM. And he recorded professionally every talk that we had. And then it was transmitted at a convenient time. I think it was a Saturday early evening, that kind of a time. And I found that very useful because I was working at the time. I couldn't attend in person. And although the talks were varied, I found them all to be successful over the radio. Then the station was restructured. He was fired, the station director, Henry Pensis, was fired, and priority was given to weather and to being a feed for a lot of purchased programs. As their income from the national government dwindles, they may revert to more local programming. But at any rate, it was disseminated throughout the entire range of the WUFT listening area, which is very large.
Right, NPR now, it's even larger in north central Florida, but we were put for a while at 6:30 in the morning, and then ultimately, as you point out, it expired. In many ways, the pandemic was a changing point, but already there was deterioration in broadcasting and recording and broadcasting. And as different presidents took over the University of Florida, the NPR changed our local WUFT. Now we have an extraordinary spread. We have two major stations, classical and the regular news. And so we should look into that sort of dissemination. Let me talk a little bit, take a few minutes on the content of the speakers, a choice of speakers. Now, Paul was genius, and we really, over the last few years, depended a great deal on Paul Hargrave because he was persistent, he had great ideas, he followed through, and I anticipate, and I'd like your opinion about this, to pull together a committee of 3 or 4 individuals. I mean, you can't, Paul was a one-man committee, and maybe someone will be talented enough to take over his whole task, but I just know that a small committee reinforcing each other is important. And so keep in mind, if you'd like to be on such a committee, feel free to volunteer. I'm willing to be on that committee if I don't have to do anything else. And look around for choice of speakers. Now, as Helen pointed out, I think we should keep in mind to have responsible but diverse speakers. I think would be really important in the future. That's my opinion about that. With regard to, we have in the past posted speakers on also on YouTube. Now I grant you, YouTube, what do they call them, shorts or beef and TikTok, and keeping it in 2 minutes is going to be a real challenge. But YouTube allows chat in the sense of responses to the content on YouTube. And that there are things put on YouTube that blank comments, but it's easy to get comments for it. So I'm just thinking of solutions to some of the problems you're bringing up. So we could have a chat element to it. Another thing that was brought up in discussion just a few minutes ago has to do with whether we, as a group, could form a coalition with other groups of similar, such as Altrusa, and what? And the Rotarians. In other words, we're concentrated on the First Amendment, and I don't think we should change that concentration, especially since we have a bunch of mugs with the First Amendment printed on it. We have to use them up somehow. But I do think that developing a coalition and cross information could be very useful as well. And anybody raise their hand if they want to make a comment as I do this stream of consciousness stuff. Okay.
I did.
Oh, good.
Right into it. If you can hear me, but I was just, we were having a stream of consciousness as you were talking, I think, because I was thinking a similar thing. If this is called the Free Speech Forum, why not have a forum? So some kind of a panel where you've got representation from different areas of the community, young people, Rotarians, whatever, and you have a topic. And so then that topic, and they're able to have a debate or a conversation about that. And then we're sharing in those experiences and wisdom.
Right, I had on my list individuals, panels, or
great minds.
even a short video where we get responses for a short video or a short movie or even a news story that would generate diverse responses. I think that would be useful as well. I think that I'm a great believer in diversity and equity and inclusion.
Yeah. Oh,
In principle. And I think we all should be waking up.
Oh, no, that's two things you're down on. Woke and DEI.
I know. But I'm open to people who don't agree with me, and that's what really should be done rather than one or the other, whatever. So all of these. So now I'm looking at my list of things. I wanted to do one more thing, a kind of a move that is unrelated to this, and that is we have a board of directors. Raise your hand if you're on the board of directors. And I'll just mention there's Allan and Kirsten and Rand here, Ken, yeah, and in May of each year we have an election for the new board, and what I would like to propose, with the approval of our president here, to just continue that board and anybody else who would like to join the board for one more year. And that's a kind of a Soviet-style election, but don't quote me. And so, do I hear any objection to doing that? I'll consider that approval. Okay? Just want some continuity here. So those are some of the ideas that I wanted to propose to you and to talk about. And we've gotten a bunch of comments that I think have all been supportive. And we're looking forward to another year. I hope this venue, I could not stand aloft. I just couldn't eat there for something. That was the last place we... Oh, and the library was very welcoming, but I was tired of sandwiches. And so we finally got a place with great food, great audio-visual equipment, and I see a bright future with a little work in the future for all of us. So if there's nothing else, yes, sir. I'll give you back this.
Oh, let me get that. If you want to reach us with comments and things like that, yes, we do have a.
Speak into it.
We do have a.
Just talk loud.
Turn off that microphone.
You know, is that better?
No,
No,
talk
you have-
loud.
You have to turn off the microphone John's wearing.
Oh, I can talk loud. How's that? Okay. We do have a web page, Florida Free Speech Forum.org. Okay? That's what you type into Google or wherever else you want. All 4 words, Florida Free Speech
Well,
Forum.
they do that every time they register.
Oh, yeah, okay, just a reminder, because some people only go to Florida Free Speech and then get derailed to somebody. Somebody tried to steal that website. That's one of the things I'm concerned about. So The other thing is that we do have a Facebook page, and you can make comments there. And we also have other ways to contact members of the board, but those are the two principal ones that we have right now. Did a lot of that get jammed or not come through? We
Just talk loud.
But they're recording it.
Okay, how's that?
The recording.
Is that any better?
Yeah.
Probably not. All right, I'll go ahead and order it. We do want to hear from you. We may have to diversify our presentations, have some for lunch, some for cocktail hour, some for this, some for that, you know, to get different people. I do remember the last time we had an overtly Republican conservative speaker who came, and unfortunately, Maggie Thatcher died not long before that, and he decided rather than present an issue that we could chew on as members of the Free Speech Forum, he was a long tribute to her in her passing and all the good things, and it didn't seem to be quite right to ask him, well, what about the miners, the Welsh miners, and all this other kind of stuff that happened during her tenure and stuff. So we need to get back to diversifying who we want to listen to and who we think is amenable to being heard and being examined a little bit, because this stuff is not simple. And it's not slogans and it's not bumper stickers. Stop.
Are we adjourned?
Hey, let's say thanks to Allan and Jay and Rob. Good job.